Well, Abby, I'm going to formally turn it over to you in just a second here. Thank you so much for being a speaker and partner with us. It was so great even having you on a couple of weeks ago for our fundraising appeal workshop. And so for those of you that are unfamiliar with Abigail Quinlan, you are in for a treat. It's going to be a really great session. So um, Abigail Quinlan is a nonprofit strategist and CEO at Nonprofit 101. Since its founding in 2016, Nonprofit 101 has served nonprofits with the goal of improving their fundraising and marketing results. Abby Quinlan, CEO and founder, has worked with dozens of nonprofits on their year-end giving strategies and is excited to guide you through new opportunities for you to reach sponsors this year-end. So thank you, Abby, for being here.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. I do talk fast, so if you guys have questions throughout the course of the presentation, please pop them in the chat. Happy to talk at the end of this, get through all of the questions that we have. Like Candace said, go back. I am Abby Quinlan. I started my nonprofit career after I got a bachelor's in marketing and communications. Decided that I really liked nonprofits, but I didn't know how they worked. So I went on and got 2 master's degrees in administration and development. And then I'm what you call a lifelong learner. I never stop learning. I'm always doing at least a course or a certificate. I think Google's amazing for those. Nonprofitready.com or .org has some really great ones. So I'm always learning. I have over a dozen certificates in the various topics there are for fundraising and marketing. The last 5 years, like Candace said, I have run Nonprofit 101, but prior to that, I had about 10 years under my belt in different marketing and fundraising roles throughout nonprofits, specifically in the Midwest region. Before we dive into the year-end fundraising focus, I know you guys have been talking about that all day. I want to focus on just sponsorships for a few minutes so that you can understand kind of where I'm coming from when I explain to you how I think your sponsorships can really be maximized through your year-end fundraising goals. So the key stages of a sponsorship research. The first is to identify your needs. So what in your organization really needs support? That could be financial, but it could also be that you're just not reaching enough people on social media. You're spending a lot of time on this. You're not getting where you want to be, but you know your target demographic is there. So that would be a great need that a sponsor could fill. Then you deep dive. So you're going to review companies, look over individuals, anything local or statewide that really would support your organization in the way that your organization needs it, in addition to them actually aligning with what your mission is. Then you're going to do some outreach. So you're going to find the marketing manager or a leader within the company that relates to your organization. And you're going to try and get a meeting set with them. That could be just shooting them an email, or could be messaging them on LinkedIn. It could be connecting through maybe one of your board leaders has a connection into the company, networking that way. The goal is to just get a meeting that's sitting down with them. I do have a note here that I say, don't bring your levels to this first meeting. You want to be using your ears rather than showing them what you're all about in the first meeting. So I want you to really focus on just understanding who your sponsor is and making sure that they're going to be a good fit for your organization as much as your organization is a good fit for them. Then you're going to follow up. So that's where your levels come in. You will probably talk about what their budget might be, what they're looking for in a partnership or sponsorship. That's when you send your package over. That's when you send the levels, or you tell them like, hey, we're willing to negotiate. This is what we really need from you. What do you see as fair? And you go back and forth with that discussion. And the final thing is to make sure that you're continuing your relationship with them. This is where I see a lot of nonprofits kind of falter because they don't see it as kind of a give and take as much as it should be. So when you're working with a sponsorship company, a lot of times you want to be keeping them updated like you would a donor. So you're sending them monthly updates, you're sending them event registrations that are free for your org. So you're still getting them in contact with you. And those event registrations could be for employees, they could be for leadership, whatever opportunities you have, you want to make sure that that sponsorship company feels valued, because then they're going to feel more like a donor than just a partner in that aspect. And you'll see an increase in money when you ask for it. They're going to be more willing to say yes because they still see the value and they appreciate the partnership. Couple of things that I want you to do before you decide to craft your sponsorship levels. The first thing, and probably the hardest, is to know your worth. Evaluate what your audience is valued at. And this can be done in a couple different methods. We don't have a ton of time to talk about it today, but I'd be happy to talk about it later on if you guys do have questions. But the key is to know what the industry standard is for charging for your audience at the various levels. So however many social media followers you have, charge for that. However many emails you have that are valid, charge for that. Can you segment your emails into specific targeted lists that would be more appropriate for your sponsor? Those kinds of things add up in cost. So when you're talking with sponsors, you're able to kind of go back and forth to make sure that you're getting value out of what they're giving you, whether that's financial, in kind, whatever they're giving you, you want to make sure is matched by what you're giving them. That's kind of how our sponsor works in comparison to a donor. And then you want to make sure your deliverables are impactful. So when you talk to a sponsor, they're going to want to know the key question of how is this going to help our marketing? How is this going to help us reach our goals? For donors, most of the time you want to know, how does this impact our feel good? You know what I mean? But for sponsors, that's the second option. They want to make sure that their marketing is going to get seen by the target audiences that they want it seen by. And then they want to make sure that the organization aligns with where they're trying to go with their company values. Because a lot of organizations have always been giving back. But if you want a sponsorship partnership that really works for you and your org, then you need to make sure that there's that equal flow and the deliverables are impactful for that company as much as they are for you. And getting creative, this is where I really have fun with sponsorship packages and levels, is kind of customizing them to meet what your org stands for. For example, I worked with an alumni association. So we got to create different levels that were kind of custom to that organization, because when you're looking at companies that are run by alumni, the alumni really like to be reminded of the good old days. So you're focusing on what really brought them back to campus, the athletics portion of it, and then the customary traditions. So the statue that everybody was able to gather around for their senior photos and things like that. So we were able to customize the name of those levels, the design of it. It looked very on brand while still giving the sponsor and the alumni focused companies what they wanted in the feel good department without compromising what we're giving them. Being flexible is another really big deal. If you have your levels set and you really don't like getting outside of those levels, this is where it comes back to knowing your worth. If a company asks you to trade, 4 email newsletter blast ads for 2 social media posts, and you don't really want to do it because you have your level set, that can get a little tricky because your sponsors aren't looking for email blasts while they're looking for social media. And then you run the risk of shooting that sponsor off. So you don't want them to run over to another nonprofit. You want to be able to bring them in and keep that partnership going. So being flexible is going to be really, really nice. But you do need to know your value. You need to know that what they're giving you and what they're asking for in exchange is still equal to what you deserve to be given. For all marketing budgets, companies aren't surprised when you say, that doesn't really work for us. We need this instead. They expect to be negotiated with. And then the last and very, very key thing is to pay attention. When sponsors are signing away their deliverables, you as the partner who is getting most like the more or / better end of the deal will probably carry more of the weight. So what I like to do is make sure that anything that's a deliverable gets put on their calendars as an event for both of us. So it's a deadline for a logo ad to the website. It's a deadline for an email ad to the website, deadline for X, Y, and Z. Whatever I need them to give me gets put on their calendars the day that they sign the agreement, so that I know they know when it's due. And if they feel like that's too far, like they need X amount of days before they can get that to me, then put that deadline earlier. But that's also a really good discussion to have as you're signing the agreement. Look over the deliverables, ask them, how long does your marketing need to put something like that together? Jot that down and then put that in your notes and make sure that you add that date to your calendars for both of you. So you're not forgetting anything. They're held responsible for their end of the deal. It's all fair. You don't feel like you need to go back and forth as much as what some people might have to if you're not doing something like that. So I'm sure everybody knows the traditional sponsors. You have your events and you get the financial sponsors. You have those who sponsor through in-kind, whether that's the venue or digital marketing, whatever that might be. You also have your programs. So those could be in-kind sponsors with food, like Whole Foods does a lot with us in the area, or cash sponsors, depending on how the programming works. You could have a cash sponsor, such as a credit union who works with youth, whoever has educational focuses, however your organization is set up and what your areas are. I'm sure there's a corporation in your area that really wants to fund you. So those are the financial aspects of sponsorships. Now let's dive into year end and how sponsors and the relationships you currently have or the relationships you want can be translated into year end fundraising. The majority of what I'm going to talk about is not going to be the financial side. We're going to look at more of in kind, because your goal with year end fundraising is fundraising. And a lot of times sponsors within companies don't see sponsorships as philanthropic. That is a different part of the company. So if you're asking for a donation from the company, that's philanthropic. If you're asking for a sponsorship, typically it's got marketing deliverables attached to it and they're looking for outcomes. So when you're doing a sponsorship that's not financially connected, this is what we're going to be talking about. Year-end fundraising with non-connected financials. So it's going to be in kind. This is where some things get tricky, and you really need to know what you value, your email list, your marketing, all of that needs to be valued so you can go into conversations being confident and knowing that you're getting out what you deserve. So let's look at media partners. This could be local magazines, newspapers, they could be online, they could be in print. Whatever you have that's local to you that could get the news out about what you're doing for year-end fundraising, whether that's your gala, it's your Giving Tuesday campaigns, your fundraising appeals and whatever focus you're on there. Whatever you're doing, you can partner with media partners on this. And this goes beyond just your normal press release. So we should all be sending those out. We all know that our media partners are awesome. They'll publish that to their website. But a lot of times those don't get viewed because people aren't always searching and they're not SEO friendly most of the time. So if people are searching, they're not going to find you on the top page. So it's really nice to have a media partner, specifically through your sponsorship program, so that you are able to really connect with those local magazines, those papers, everything that you have going on that's local that will help you raise your goals. And your goals should really focus around growth. And that could be growth for them, that can be growth for you, looking at what new donors might be, what digital engagement you really want to get. However your fundraising platform is looking and your campaign is going, have those goals in top of mind as you go into your negotiations and your discussions. Another key part of media partners is making sure that their donor demographic is your donor demographic. So if you're looking at a newspaper that is in print, but you are a youth-focused organization, the majority of youth are not reading newspapers. The majority of youth's parents are no longer reading print newspapers. So those two demographics that you really want to focus on aren't going to be in where that media partner is. So it might not be the best situation for your year-end fundraising specifically. So what is the purpose of having media partners for your year-end fundraising? The first and probably the biggest is to broaden your audience from that trusted source. So if you're starting with a trusted source, you have someone who is subscribed to this local media magazine, and they have been a subscriber for 15 years. They love reading this magazine. They love the edition that comes out every November before Giving Tuesday. They just love it because it's so holiday filled and it's so fun. So they're already a trusted user of this magazine. And if they're coming in and they see a bright, cheery ad that this magazine is supporting your nonprofit for, then they're already part of your donor journey because they're going from a trusted source to a trusted source. It's not like a Facebook ad where you're coming in, you have to warm them up. They already have that trusted source. You're also able to use the knowledge and use your partner strategies for growth. So you're able to talk with that partner about what strategies they're going to use to get your name out there and vice versa. If they have some really cool ideas on how your nonprofit could be using their name and partnership on social media to really raise engagement, that's going to be important for you to know, and that's going to be really helpful for you in the long run. I also really enjoy media partners for the aspect of volunteer ambassadors. So I personally enjoy digital ambassador programs. They're similar to the peer-to-peer fundraising programs. And you can, like we were talking about in the last session, you have the ability to use the free version of CauseVox to create individual peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns. So these individual volunteer ambassadors can really help you to become like that digital promotion with their own individual pages. And that could be having a couple new promoters from within the company. You know, the sponsorship company highlights 4 people that really enjoy your organization. They like what you're doing, and they partner them with you so that they're your digital promoters. They're going to help you create and really share the news with their networks. So you're getting all of that new engagement from that platform. You can also use the partnerships that you have with the media for event attendees. So a lot of times if you're partnering with, we partnered with a radio station this last year, 2020, for a Giving Tuesday campaign. Now Giving Tuesday is completely virtual, right? So it was a little odd that we would partner with a radio promoter for media. But the purpose for doing that is because they were able to give us airtime. And for Giving Tuesday, they actually translated it into an in-person event. So it was a really small outdoor thing. So the organization was able to use the radio spots to promote that Giving Tuesday event that was in person to gain event attendees. So that's gaining registration, gaining revenue, while just using an easy 15-second to 30-second spot on a radio. And then the comparables for deliverables were able to be given back for the radio as well. And then you get to increase your brand awareness. If you're doing your sponsorships the way that we're talking about, you're going to get into new audiences that are going to expand on what you already have. So you're going to expand your brand awareness. You're going to get into new networks. So these media partners are really good at networking. That is half of their job. So it's really important that you understand that that brand awareness is going to grow. And you putting together all of your marketing materials, your fundraising materials, having your brand associated with the media partner is going to be really helpful. So here's a couple examples of what some deliverables might be in trade for one another. They might want a quarterly ad in your email newsletter blast, and you might receive quarterly pages. So if it's a local magazine, having a quarter page ad would be really cool. And you can work with them to plan this out so it's lining up with where you're going to be launching different phases of your year-end fundraising campaigns. You could also do social media highlights as a partner, social media takeover days. One of the things that we did this last year that was really successful is a membership. So an organization I was working with had t-shirt sales as part of their year-end fundraising. And I don't typically encourage t-shirt sales just because the revenue is not usually there. But this media partner really wanted it. So we worked with them. We created the t-shirts, we designed them, we got them set up with Zazzle. All of that got taken care of. And then the media partner asked that for every t-shirt purchased, they would also support with a $1 subscription to the local magazine. Now, the local magazine costs $24 a year. It's $2 per issue. So a $1 subscription instead of $24, that's a pretty cool idea. And it's only $1. So having that value added really helped in the long run on the nonprofit side, because now people are going to think, oh, I got it for $1. Why would I pay $24 this year? Let's go back, buy a t-shirt, buy whatever they're giving for this year and fundraising for themselves, and then get that $1. Like the give and take in this partnership was really nice. And then they also got, the nonprofit got a year-end basically highlight in the last issue of that magazine. So it was part of the introduction. You know how as people go through a magazine, your attention kind of fades. So the nonprofit made sure that that highlight was in the first 10 pages of the magazine. So it was more often than not going to be able to be seen. And they also had the membership. So they kind of snuck that in as part of the ad for their last month of the year. So they're getting fundraising dollars and they're building their membership. So it was a really good win-win in this specific situation. Corporate partners. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink. It's too bad it's too early for that pumpkin beer, right? Corporate partners. Local large companies with insights into areas of need for your organization. That's super broad. But if you're looking at companies like Wells Fargo, they're really focused on different educational needs and health within communities. Looking at Northwestern Mutual is one of our big companies in the area I live, and they're really focused on STEM. So just knowing what kind of companies are in your area, what their area of expertise or areas of giving are, is really important. So for these corporate partners, you're really going to want to focus on their website traffic from their pages to your pages. And then that can be via pop-ups. It could be via events. Again, event registrations for what you have going on for end of year. It could be the pop-up for your Giving Tuesday campaign. Whatever you see that fits from their website to your website, or to get them to your donation pages, is going to be really important. And again, you want to make sure that the partners that you're choosing have those key donor demographics that you're looking for on their email marketing list or social media list, so that you're really focusing your annual fundraising to bring in donors that you're working with, that you can cultivate to become major donors in the future. So these are very similar to the media. You're going to notice that you're going to broaden your audience. You're going to get those employees that are part of the company who get those email blasts. But you're really going to be able to focus on the knowledge and use of the partner strategies for increasing your attendance. So the companies know what their employees want. The companies know that their employees love going to specific events because those resource groups are already in the companies. So a lot of times when I partner with companies specifically for sponsorships for year end, I ask that we get in front of their resource groups. And that could be through email, that could be through their Yammer pages, however that looks for that specific company. I ask to be in front of those resource groups because the leaders will help you in those resource groups get out to all of the members of those groups. So you're just kind of spreading your arms and getting more touch points without you doing additional work. You're going to be able to increase your website or social media traffic that's directly linked from that partner. You're going to be able to really gain a better insight into your audiences and knowing what they like and what they don't like. Something I like to do with corporate partners specifically is to do A/B testing. So knowing what pop-up works best, what language on a pop-up, if there's specific imagery that works, things like that. So that really gets into the bogged down kind of part of it. But that's where like the knowledge and strategies your partners have for their employees will come in really handy. So you're not spending a ton of time crafting those things, but you're able to really understand what your audience wants. From here, you get to take that back to the campaigns that you're doing outside of year-end fundraising. And understanding that audience, you're going to be able to craft more messages that are better. You're going to end up being able to do an even better year-end appeal next year. You're just going to be able to keep crafting that message that tells your story in more precise ways that get more donations. And that's always the goal, right? So some corporate partners like to have an ad in a newsletter. Maybe that ad is talking about like a checking account that's opening, or an event that that company is having that's open to the public, whatever that company may be, as long as it aligns with your organization's goals. And then you can have a nonprofit highlight in the employee e-newsletter. So that goes out to all employees. Ask them what their employee open rate is for that, because that'll be really important to know where your level of worth is for that. Because if people aren't opening their employee newsletters, it's not going to be worth you putting your info in. You could also have marketing deliverables for year-end campaigns. This is where like corporate partners could bring in employees. You can have peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns. CauseVox has that opportunity to do team campaigns. You can do things like that that are really focused on the company helping you. And in turn, you're going to be able to promote them. You're going to be able to give them some space on your social media, on your website, whatever that may look like, as a promotional partner, as a corporate partner. Sorry, we'll talk about promotional next. But as a corporate partner, you're going to be able to give them that marketing deliverable so that they're being seen in more audiences than what they currently have. And I always like to ask corporate partners how they want to be recognized. You know, if you're giving back and you're meeting your goals with us, what do you want us to be doing to make sure that you feel valued? And that's the same thing you typically ask your employees or any other partners. So knowing what makes them feel valued, what they're going to feel like is getting a lot out of the sponsorship, so that that sponsorship continues and could turn into financial sponsorship or increasing the financial sponsorship in addition to the marketing, whatever that looks like, keep asking them. I also really enjoy doing social media takeover days on different company pages, because it's really fun to see what their audience engages in. And it's different than your audience. Their audience is going to be different, but having that data to take back and understand, okay, their audience looks like this. They're 25 to 45-year-old females, typically living in this region. You're going to have that data come back. And if those people in that demographic really enjoy your content and really engaged with it, but they're not a demographic that you're working with now, then it's going to be really nice for you to know that is a donor demographic you need to go for. And that's something you can focus on with your year-end fundraising appeals. You can really focus on crafting a message that speaks to that donor base. All right, the last partner that I'm going to talk about today, and then we'll jump into questions, is promotional partners. These are the type of partners that I probably get the most questions about. I call them social media influencers. That's getting to be a pretty common phrase nowadays. But I always make sure that that influencer is connected to the organization's mission or vision. Because if you have an influencer who isn't connected at all, it's going to seem very inauthentic for them to be posting or commenting. For example, a few years back, I can't remember that like fitness person, Michaels, Jillian Michaels, maybe, who has a huge following. She loves animals, not something she had talked about very often on her page. Yes, Jillian Michaels. Okay. But there were wildfires. So she started contributing thousands of dollars to local animal shelters to take care of animals who were being abandoned because people were leaving. There's not enough space in cars, whatever the situation. She started contributing money. And there had to have been incredibly intelligent nonprofits to make sure that they knew she was doing this. So they started reaching out to her on social media. And after that, you can go through and look at Jillian Michaels' social media pages, specifically Instagram, and see that there are two main nonprofits that stuck with her, that really made that impact for her. And now she's a social media influencer for them. So it's really important for promotional partners to become that kind of organic engagement. With these, it's kind of difficult to create goals, but I do like to have goals with every partnership that you create that's not specifically financial. I like to have goals. For this type of partnership, a lot of times it's the new donors, it's either digital engagement. Maybe the first year is just making sure that it's the right fit. So you don't put any skin in the game financially, but you're making sure that they get your content, that it's being seen by your target audiences. And then you can discuss, maybe next year, this is what we'd like to do to grow this. And then we can talk about financials and see what in turn we could do for you that you could do for us, and make it less of a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign for the influencer and more of a true donation sponsorship style partnership. And again, just make sure that their key donors or their key demographics are your key donor areas that you want to reach or that you already have and you want to expand. You heard me say this twice already, but the purpose of this is to broaden your audience from a trusted source. Partner audiences already know who the partner is, they trust them, and if they trust that person that they're following, a lot of times they're going to go back and trust you. I saw a statistic this last week that over 60% of people purchase from what they see on Instagram. And I am one of those 60%. I buy a lot of things that I see on Instagram late at night. More than I buy on TikTok, but pretty darn close. But if partners on social media are talking about your organization and they have that goal of raising a specific number of new donors or a specific amount of funds for your organization with their CauseVox peer-to-peer page, this is a really great way to get new donors in. You're seeing what they're doing. You're seeing the new demographics. You're able to look at that data. It's really, really nice to be able to see what's going on. And with the peer-to-peer fundraising, people feel connected to another human that they relate to, even if it's through social media. So if one human cares about a cause and they explain why they care about the cause and they explain what they're doing about this, you're going to create more authentic, really organic connections. And those donors can become donors that become major donors, become recurring donors, become those monthly givers. So that's a really nice opportunity. And you're increasing your brand awareness. So social media influencers have the bigger followings. They're going to be able to really reach the audiences that you want to reach and build your brand with you. So promotional partners are really, they're a give and take, because a lot of times you don't do financial swaps with a promotional partner. Some social media influencers do want to get paid for it, but I don't push that, especially as nonprofits. I don't personally believe that's the best way to start. And if your social media influencer really wants you to pay them to promote you, they're not in line with your organization. They're not out for the greater good in that situation. But some things I do encourage is having them write a guest blog post for you. And if they have a blog post or a place that they write content, having you take over that for a day. It's really good for you to be on both of each other's platforms, because you're going to reach each other's audiences. And, a social media influencer wants to keep growing their audience, because the purpose of social media influencing is to influence others. So if they're able to grow their audience by having a guest blog post on your site, and you're able to grow yours by doing something on their platform of choice, then it's helping you both be more beneficial. I always suggest social media highlights. If you are connecting with an influencer, being able to tag them is really important. Being able to share an Instagram story with their tag, and having them share it to their page that goes back and forth, it's going to be really helpful for your engagement scores. So you're going to understand what people are really interested in. I also suggest that if you're doing promotional partners for your year-end fundraising, that you kind of go through what you expect from them as a promotional partner, the language that you're going to use. This could be part of the social media toolkit that you guys put together for peer-to-peer fundraising, but make sure it's in more detail, because influencers do like engaging in their comments. They really like to make sure that their community is well acknowledged. So you need to prepare them to make sure that they know what your organization is about, how you talk about it, all of the connotations. If you're in the medical or healthcare fields, you have different phrasing that you use that you want to make sure that they're using. If you work with other sensitive communities, you want to make sure that the language you're using is the same and consistent. You don't want something associated with your brand from a promotional partner really tanking your image, because they have a huge following. You don't want other people seeing that. All right. So I told you in the first meeting that I don't want you taking sponsorship packages with you to any first initial meetings, but I do want to gloss over what you can include in your sponsorship packages. So I really emphasize visuals. If you're doing a promotional or media partner, they want to know that your visuals are equal to the quality of their visuals and vice versa. You want to make sure that you're giving what you're getting. Focus on the company / influencer and the audience. So making sure that you guys are aligned, you're really working together well, everything is really streamlined because you guys kind of mesh just that well. Be clear. If you're putting out your marketing deliverables right away, be clear on what those deliverables are, what they should expect from them, what the anticipated due date or needs or tasks, anything associated with those deliverables, be clear, have them written out so that it's not a discussion 2 months in advance. They're super surprised that they need to be jumping on a live in 2 weeks to do a soft launch of your year-end giving campaign. Just make sure that they're understanding everything that will be a part of your year-end giving and your sponsorship in this scenario. Call to action is really important, making sure that you have your initial ask in the package. And this is specifically for if you're going to do multiple levels. For promotional partners, you're probably just going to want to do 1 level. For media partners, you might do 2 levels depending on what you're getting from those media partners. For corporate partners, same thing. Depending on what you want to get from them, you might want to separate those out into multiple levels or tiers. And make it direct, like tell the company or media partner, this is exactly what I'm going to ask you for. These are the deliverables and what you can expect from us. These are what we expect from you. And then start the discussion on what needs to change. And the final thing is contact info. This is really surprising, but people forget to add their contact info into sponsorship packages. And I always include it in the beginning and the end, especially if you're emailing it. Your name is probably memorable. But sometimes people forget emails or they forget names. If they look up sponsorship package and they have 15 of those in the last 2 weeks, you want to make sure your contact info is in one of those things so that everybody knows who to contact. It's also really important if you had a meeting with 3 or 4 people from your team, they came in and met with a marketing team at a company, you're going to want one contact person. You can CC everybody on email so everybody's up to date, but one contact person to connect with that company on an ongoing basis. Some key tips to remember before you approach these sponsors, because I'm sure you guys are all ready to go. Your mission is really important to you, but your audience is more important to your sponsor. Not that sponsors are coming in and thinking, oh, we're just going to get all of this stuff. We're going to give them money and we're going to get their audience. Make it worth the sponsor's time to be a partner with you because they're open to your audience, because they're getting things from you. You're also getting things from them. So it's a 2-way street here. Remember that. know who your ideal sponsors are before you reach out. So this is just part of the doing the research, doing some LinkedIn deep diving on companies, doing some social media deep dives on individual sponsors, whatever that looks like, deep diving into that information to make sure you really align with who they are is going to be important. You don't want something to pop up later on. You guys will probably see this, maybe not in your areas, but a local for our FFA organization did something very inappropriate at the national level. And they were a sponsor and sponsors got pulled. They didn't like what had happened. And there's things like that where you need to know who your sponsors are and make sure that your organizations match up together. Number 3 is get your board involved in identifying and doing the outreach. If your board member has the network that reaches into the companies that you're looking at, get them involved. They can do the initial ask, they can do the initial outreach. It's totally okay that you are not the very first person that they talk to. But when I say that, I do need you to do your coaching for your board members. I don't want them going in blind. I don't want them talking about things that they can't actually deliver. So you need to make sure that your board members are 100% on board with what is going on, what you can do, what you're looking for. So they're not delivering things that aren't attainable for you to do throughout your year-end fundraising. This is going to be a busy time. And if they're asking for 15 blog posts and 10 other events that you approach them at and you host a table and this and that, it's taking away from the work that you're really trying to do. So make sure your board members are on board with what you want to get done. And the 4th is that have all of your questions prepared beforehand. Know what you want to ask them, know like the audience sizes, know what kind of demographics you want to be reaching, know those type of things beforehand. But don't feel like you have to go into the meeting like it's an interview. It can be a very casual, light conversation with a focus. I always like to tell people this, but remember your sponsors and your donors are human. You are human. So talk to them like we're all human. We all like to be talked to like we can be understood. So going into your sponsorship meetings like that is going to be really helpful in the long run if your sponsors find you to be approachable. All right, hit me with your questions.
All right. Thanks, Abby. This is great. A lot of really great practical insights into working with sponsors and partners. And I think this is like a lot of things that are really applicable for year end. So yeah, thank you everyone. Would love to just hear any questions you guys have. Or what's one main takeaway that you got out of this discussion? What's one thing that you're going to take away about running sponsorships for your organization? I'm just curious, how has anyone done sponsorships before for their nonprofit?
It is a fun area to get into. I personally enjoy it. Becky did ask, I typically suggest sending out the package within 2 to 3 days after you meet with them so that you have time to really go over. You can go back to your team, make sure that what you're proposing is actually deliverable. You're not going to overdo it for yourselves. And you're not going to go back and forth with, like, if you're not your marketing manager and you tell your sponsor, yeah, we could totally do an email in 2 weeks, but you don't know your marketing manager is going to be off on vacation that week, you want to go back and forth, make sure everything's deliverable.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, I'm so interested to hear from those who have done sponsorships. Do you have any other suggestions for any other nonprofits getting started with sponsorships?
That's good too.
Yeah.
Getting started can be scary. So Becky also asked, when would most companies think about sponsorships? And that fluctuates. I always look at when the company is like their year end, because you want to be in discussions before their year end so that you are a part of their budget for the start of the next fiscal year. And some companies end their year in June, some end in August, some end at the calendar year. It's really different and it arrays a lot. So that's part of your deep dive discussions. And if you get to know the first go around, keep in mind, like that is a great question to ask during the first call. If they say, you know, we really don't have the budget this year, your follow-up question should be, okay, when should we start discussions next year?
Cool. Becky says,
Ooh.
awesome. Thank you.
I like Chad's comment. I had one company tell me if I would have approached them in January/February. Yep. It happens a lot. They do designate their funds pretty quickly. As you guys know, in your fundraising, funds come out a lot quicker than you think it does. And making sure that you are at the forefront is kind of difficult with everything you're doing. And a lot of times sponsors take the backseat for that. So making sure that you either create a calendar for the companies you want to reach out to and knowing when their fiscal year starts/ends, knowing when any materials they need to be reviewed. It's important to make sure you have a calendar and are organized with that. So you don't hit that wall of they're like, oh, well, it's March 13th and we made decisions on March 2nd. So sorry, you're out of luck.
Yeah, and I think if someone can't like commit money as a sponsor, you can always just like see kind of like I was saying earlier, like maybe see if they can be a promotions partner instead, or kind of explore other ways. One of my favorite ways that I've seen organizations work with corporate partners is actually getting them to fundraise for them. So like North Texas Food Bank, instead of asking their corporate sponsors and partners to actually make a gift themselves, which I'm sure they made part of the gift themselves, but instead they actually created a crowdfunding campaign that was like co-branded with North Texas Food Bank and whatever partner they were working with, and crafted, you know, a lot of the same content. They pretty much like copied the same campaign over and over and just switched out the logo, switched out a little bit of the content, and then handed it over to their partner to fundraise. And they did that. I mean, it was incredible. Like they did it over a couple of years, but they had over 130 partner campaigns. It was incredible. Like they really built out a whole like partner fundraising thing at their organization. It was so cool. And yeah, I mean, how easy was that? It literally took them maybe 10 minutes to set up a site and then just give it to their partner. So that was really cool. Or like even inviting partners to do peer-to-peer fundraising with you. So like have staff members at one of your, you know, partners basically like sign up to fundraise.
Right.
That takes a lot of
Someone as a
buy-in.
point person.
Yeah. It takes a lot of buy-in, like obviously, but it's kind of fun when people like compete like internally in the office. Like people get really
Like
competitive.
you get departments to compete. I've seen that work really, really well in larger companies where like they actually do resource groups, however they call that within their companies. They'll do competitions each year within their groups to fundraise for a specific cause, which is really cool.
That's always super fun.
Our area code is 414. So a lot of companies will see like those leaderboards on their social media saying like this department's in the lead and we're fundraising for the Ronald McDonald House and things like that. And it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Thank you so much, Abby. This is so fun. If there's no more questions, Chad asked, can you have some of your people come out and volunteer? Be fun. I like to approach your employee resource groups. Yeah, that's also great. Thanks, Molly, for adding that. Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for the awesome session, Abby. So many great takeaways. And yeah, just thanks for being here. This is so fun.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Good luck with the rest of your sessions.